What is going on, everybody? This is your man, Big B, Brian Hanley, and welcome to Steelers Almighty, man. We appreciate everybody being in here. We got a real good show for you guys today, so thank you guys for showing up as you always do. Look, we are going to cover wide receiver. Look, we got a crazy duo now in D.K. Metcalf and George Pickens. Can they play together? We're going to take a look at that. The rub on Aaron Rodgers, there's a ton of us out there that aren't happy that the Steelers that this is what it's come to. Aaron Rodgers is the quarterback or going to be the quarterback, or apparently we're wanting him to be the quarterback. Isn't that bad of a deal? We're going to take a deep dive into that. Young offensive lineman. Look, a lot of people don't like the offensive line. Let's just put it out there. But the offensive line is young, and if the Steelers are going to be better, these guys are going to have to play better. Let's take a real look at what the offensive line actually looks like, people. And then the Steelers in free agency. They haven't done much. It is not a ton. People count the DK Metcalf as an actual signing. It isn't. But why are the Steelers sitting out? We're going to take a real dive into that and try to figure all this out for you guys. So appreciate everybody showing up as always. Remember, you can find us on Steelers Almighty on YouTube at youtube.com Steelers Almighty. You can also find us anywhere that you get a podcast. It is at Steelers Almighty. And anywhere that you have social media, make sure that you sign up for Steelers Almighty. So appreciate that. Remember to like, follow, subscribe, continue to get in the comments. We also have memberships available for anybody that wants membership content, 5 different levels of members for you guys to be able to join. So if you want to help support the channel in that way, we appreciate you guys. So let's get into this. So, can Pickens and DK Metcalf play together? That is the real question. So, first off, they both have kind of the same skill set. Is that they're both deep ball guys. You know, they are ultra athletic. I would say DK is probably a little more athletic than George, but also think George's hands are a little bit better than DK's are. But both can make crazy catches. And you want to get the ball in their hands as much as you possibly can and let them do some magic after the catch. DK's been able to do that a little bit more in the offenses that he's been in Seattle versus George, especially this past year, in Pittsburgh. But both are very, very capable. Now, they absolutely have different body types because you look at George Pickens, George is more of a long, I don't want to say he's skinny, but he's a leaner type of guy. Where you look at DK Metcalf, I mean, he's a physical specimen. I mean, he's the guy that you want to see, the first guy coming off the bus. That's who you put out there. You walk DK out there as the first guy, a cutoff shirt, walking out. Okay. He looks like he's built like an outside linebacker or something like that, but he's playing receiver. That's what DK Metcalf brings to the table. Now, again, both bigger guys, but just looking at the two, there's a difference as far as body type. Now, is that good or bad? I don't think it's a bad thing for either. DK's been successful the way that he is. George Pickens has been successful the way that he is. So I don't think there's a negative to any of that. The one negative that I would bring up, and it's a legitimate talking point, is the route running. Both of them are not spectacular as far as route running, as far as the entire route tree, I should say. You don't see a whole lot of that in this Steelers offense from George Pickens. Last year, even on the other side, with Mike Williams, like there wasn't a ton that was going on. Now, you take a deep dive into Metcalf, he's not running the entire route tree either. But what he does do is that he can run over the middle and catch passes over the middle of the field. Now, I'm not saying George Pickens can't do that. We just haven't seen him do it. Run a dig route, run a 14-yard dig. That's not George Pickens' game. That is DK Metcalf's game because he's big, he's physical. Even if he doesn't get a ton of separation, he's able to box guys out and catch the football with his hands. There's the difference. George isn't, they just haven't asked him. Who knows if he can do it? I would like to think, now I know a lot of you guys are going to laugh at this, but I would like to think at least our coaches would understand, hey, we can't, that we're not going to put George in a situation that he can't do, if that makes sense. You wouldn't put him out there to run a bunch of dig routes if he can't do it. That's the way that I'm looking at it. Maybe the coaches have seen stuff and they say, hey, man, this is not his best route. Going over the middle is not the thing that he does extremely well. We need to do something different. From that aspect, maybe the coaches are seeing that. I'm sure if you talk to George Pickens himself, he's going to tell you he can do anything. Just draw it up and I'll run it. And for the most part, we don't have any reason not to believe him. I think the schematics for both of these guys is going to be gigantic. I think it's going to be huge because I believe both guys are going to have to maybe get a little bit out of their comfort zone for the Steelers to be as good as what they want to be. That's what I think. I think they're going to have to figure out some stuff and say, you know what? I don't always do this well, but I need to be able to do this so that we can thrive. Hopefully we get that kind of cooperation out of both of them. Look, I get it. Both have been volatile, but people are so worried about George Pickens, and I'm going to come to Pickens' defense. Look, I get on George all the time, but you never heard him complaining about not getting the ball when Deontay Johnson was around. Like, you didn't hear him complaining about it. Now, he may have not given full effort on something, said something stupid in an interview, whatever, but there wasn't a whole lot of just bickering about, hey, you're throwing the ball to Deontay too much. You didn't hear that. So I don't think we're going to necessarily hear that with DK Metcalf either. Now, if he goes 3 games and DK has 18 catches and George has 4, you might hear something. That's a little bit different of a situation. But like I said, I'll come to Pickens' defense. I never really heard any of that stuff coming out of his mouth or from his camp when Deontay Johnson was here. So I'm going to take up for him in that aspect. Let's get to the poll question, people. Poll question. Which player do you think will have a bigger impact in the Steelers' offense this season? Is it A, George Pickens, or B, DK Metcalf? It's a good question. It's a good question. Some people are thinking DK is just going to come in and wreck shop and be the guy. Others think, you know what? I think they can play off of each other and they can both be productive. Some might even favor George. I don't know. It'd be tough if the guy that you just gave $150 million to has to take a back seat to somebody. But we as Steeler fans, we know how talented George Pickens is. We know how talented the guy is. So that's the thing. It'll be interesting. I'm interested to see what you guys have to say for that. Let's move on, people. So, Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers seems to be the guy that the Steelers are going after. Why? I don't know. Do I necessarily like it? My feelings on it. First off, anybody that can help the Steelers win football games, I am for. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter what your background, your political, religious belief. I don't care. As long as you show up and do your job and don't cause problems and help the Steelers win, fine. So be it. So I can get past anything. I shouldn't say anything because that's not true. I can get past most things with people. As long as they're helping us win, okay, fine. Let's do that. So all the talk with Aaron Rodgers, do we want him? Do we not want him? Let's take a deep dive and break down why I think that it's not as bad as what some of us think that it could be. Now, number one, I think Mike Tomlin is the one who's really pushing for this. There's been rumblings all over the room. Gary Duliak basically came out and said, this is a Mike Tomlin thing, and that Mike Tomlin is the guy that is pushing for Aaron Rodgers. And for the people out there that still don't want to think that Mike Tomlin has say so on this roster, here's your proof. If Mike Tomlin's the guy that's behind it, other people are not, here's your proof that Mike Tomlin has absolute say in who is on this football team and who is not. Now, is he the ultimate decision maker? I think that's probably Art Rooney II. But at the same time, and I think Art Rooney II is also more involved than what a lot of people may think that he is. That point I also want to make clear. Look, the Rooneys in the past, everybody hasn't always been so hands-on and involved. I think Art Rooney II is more involved than what maybe Steeler fans are used to or think that he is. I think that he is. That might not be the perception that's been put out there, but I think he is a little bit more hands-on than his predecessors, people. I believe that. Now, here's the thing about Aaron Rodgers. He's going to get the ball out of his hand, people. That's his trait. Get the ball out of his hand, get it out quick. He's accurate with the football. When he does get the ball out of his hand, he is extremely accurate with the football. So take note. Those are all good things. Get it out of his hand quick. And is he accurate? Yes and yes. He's also outstanding pre-snap. That's the thing. At the line of scrimmage, Aaron Rodgers can get you in and out of a good play, or out of a bad play and into a good play. Number one, because he is smart, regardless of what some people want to believe. He is a super smart guy. There's not going to be too many defenses, if any, or coverages that he hasn't seen and been able to figure out. And the one thing that he's going to want is to make sure that guys are going to be where they're supposed to be. Now, from that standpoint, you might think, well, he's going to be a jerk about it. He's an ass. Well, what leaders aren't jerks? What leaders aren't an ass? Tom Brady was a jerk. Michael Jordan was a jerk. Peyton Manning was a jerk when it came to holding people accountable. That's part of the job. That is literally part of the description. Hold people accountable. Sometimes you got to be a dick about it. Everything's not fun in games, especially on a football field when live bullets are coming. And of course, I don't mean real bullets, people, so relax. But the bottom line is, yeah, quarterbacks from time to time are going to have to be an asshole. And I don't think there's any problem with Aaron Rodgers doing that. Now, does he go overboard with throwing guys under the bus in the media? Yeah. Now, that's not something that we're going to tolerate. But that's probably something that the head coach is going to have to figure out. If the head coach is the one that wants to bring him here, that's probably a conversation that's going to have to be had. Hey, man, we don't do that here in Pittsburgh. You can be mad. You can be frustrated all you want. But we're not calling people out. We're not doing that in the media. So if you feel like you need to do that, we'll do it behind closed doors. But in the media, we're not doing that. I also believe Aaron Rodgers would be good for George Pickens. Remember when I just said being where you're supposed to be? George Pickens won't be able to run those half-ass routes if he's not going to be where he's supposed to be with Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is going to hold him accountable. And here's the thing. If Pickens isn't where he's supposed to be, Aaron Rodgers just won't throw him the football. That's what we have to understand. Because I believe Rodgers will throw it to the guy that's open. But if you're not where you're supposed to be, I'm not even looking your way. So that will help George Pickens become a better receiver. I believe that. I also think that he still has some arm talent, people. He still has arm talent. Now, is it the same arm talent that he had 5 years ago? No. Let's not kid ourselves. 41 years old, you're not going to. But he still has upper echelon arm talent as far as this league is concerned. And I also don't think that he wants to go out on the note that he went out on last year. I mean, that was a disaster with the Jets, an absolute disaster. Head coach fired, general manager fired, guys getting cut left and right, just a total rebuild of the Jets because they basically went all in with Aaron Rodgers and it didn't work. Now, is he only to blame? No, you know how I am. Every one person isn't the only guy to blame. That's never the case. However, is he a big part of it? Yes, he is. Yes, he is. I mean, it started in the offseason, not showing up to a mandatory mini camp to go to Egypt. Who does that? I mean, and that won't be tolerated. Look, we can say a lot of things about Mike Tomlin, and he gives players a lot of leeway. He does, and it drives us insane. But do you think that he's going to allow the new quarterback of his team, to just not show up for mandatory minicamp? I would guess not. And I think Rodgers wants to go out on a better note. I would think that he wants to go out on a much better note than what it was with the New York Jets. That's just my feeling. That's just my gut feeling that he doesn't want to be looked upon as, okay, that's my final, nail in my playing career's coffin is what happened in New York. We've got a life raft here for you. All you got to do is get on. So, again, I'm not necessarily saying that he's the answer. I'm just saying it's all not bad. And if he's going to be the quarterback, we got to start looking at positives. That's all I'm saying. We got to start looking at some positives. Let's go to the poll question. So the poll, with ample cap space available, which strategy do you believe most beneficial for the Steelers moving forward? Drafting a QB, spending in free agency, focusing on player development, or trading for a star player? So what do you believe is the best available strategy for the Steelers moving forward? We are at halftime, people. So, again, thank you guys. I appreciate all the support that you guys have given us. We're coming up on our 1 year anniversary on April 4th. We will have been around for 1 year. It is crazy. We are at 6,700 subscribers to date. All the success that we've had is all because of you guys, man. I love putting these out for you guys. I love to try to entertain you guys, and I love the support, the back and forth, all of it. Even the people that I don't agree with, I love all of it, man. Thank you guys so much for everything that you've done and your continued support of Steelers Almighty, man. Remember, if you haven't subscribed, make sure you do. If you're not a member, you want to help support the channel in that way, make sure that you show up there and sign up. We got 5 different levels of memberships for you guys. You'll love that content, people. So let's get back to the show. So up next, can the O-line be a strength? Like, can the offensive line be a strength for the Pittsburgh Steelers? So here's the thing. A lot of people, they talk about, well, the line stinks. And, if Aaron Rodgers is a quarterback, it's not going to work because the O-line's not any good. Now, hear me out. We think that the offensive line is going to be better this year than next year, don't we? I would guess that is kind of the consensus because let's just start from center. We got Zach Frazier. I think all Steeler fans would agree that we found our next center for the next decade, that we've got the guy. He played really good as a rookie. He's only going to get better as he learns how to become a professional. I love what we have in Zach Frazier. He's kind of the anchor of the offensive line at this point. Now we got Siamalu. And Siamalu's the vet. I thought the Steelers might either trade or cut Siamalu. Doesn't look like they're going to do that. And I thought that's a great move. Don't do it. I thought they might get rid of him. You heard that talk. I thought that was silly. Even this offseason, this is the last year on his deal. I would up him for another 2 years. Up Siamalu. He's the vet. strong. I think he battled an injury all last season. Remember, he missed the first 4 games of the year. I don't think he was healthy at all last year. I think you get him back, get him healthy. You got a good left guard, a really good left guard that's physical. That's physical. You go over to the right side. At this particular moment, it appears to be Mason McCormick's job to lose. Okay? Mason is kind of the wild man out there. Is his technique, and we've talked about it ad nauseum, but we'll keep talking about it because I think it's important. His technique was all over the place. It was bad. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. His technique was bad, but he was a fighter. You can't teach a motor. You can't teach attitude, and he has those things. He'll get after you. It doesn't always look pretty, but he gets the job done, or at least he tries to get the job done. Now, if he can clean up his technique, if somehow Pat Meyer, who we all aren't big fans of, but if he could somehow kind of start honing some of that wild, frenetic energy and that great motor that he has into the technique side of this, we've got our guard for the next decade, people. Because McCormick can play football. He's a football player. He just needs to learn the technical side of it. And do we have the coaches to do that? I believe we do. Well, I hope that we do. Let me just say that again. Pat Meyer, but he's there. Optimism. Optimism is the word today. Optimism. Then Faitanu, where to me, Faitanu is kind of like the prodigy. He got hurt, but the talent, we saw it, and we know it's there. He's going to be the right tackle, so we think. And he played one game and looked pretty good in that one game. Is he going to have some second-year struggles just because he doesn't have the snaps? Sure, he will. But he's also 1 year removed from college, which basically we got a redshirt year of a first-round pick, and we can plug him in and say, hey, man, you're ready to go. If he can stay healthy, I like what we have at right tackle. Because, again, the injury issues are why he slid to us at 20, and then he got hurt. But the talent is undeniable. The talent is absolutely undeniable how good this guy can be. And again, for the one game, we saw it. He was good. So I like Troy Faitanu. That leaves us on the left side, left tackle with Broderick Jones. And what I call Broderick, I don't think prima donna is the word because he's not an arrogant guy. But this is a guy that has the tools. We've seen it. We saw it his rookie year. You saw how good Broderick Jones could be. Well, you saw glimpses of it, I should say, on how good he could be. You saw how he could road grade people, pass protect, the athleticism. You get him out in space, he can pull. You saw all those things from Broderick Jones. You did. You saw it. Took a big step back last year. I don't know if it was a confidence thing. I don't know if he had that right arm injury thing, but you saw the step back, and it didn't look good. Now we're moving him to the left tackle, his natural position. Does it automatically get fixed because he moves to left tackle? I don't believe that's true. I don't think you just, okay, I'm moving back. I'm fine. I think it'll be a work in progress, but I do think that he will play better, people. I believe he will play better. Again, if he just gives us average play, it's better than what Dan Moore gave us last year. At least over the last 8 games, Dan Moore was horrible. Just absolutely ridiculously bad. So if he can give us average play, we'll take it. We'll take it. And I still think there's something in there with Broderick. Another year as a pro, he understands things a little bit more. I think we have something. Now, can't figure it out after this year. Bust will be the answer to what Broderick Jones is. But let's give it a chance. And if we're willing to give it a chance, and all these things that I'm talking about as far as the offensive line are true, doesn't that mean the Steelers line is better than what it was a year ago? It would have to mean that. It would have to mean that. So for me, I just can't help but to think they're going to be better. Now, if these guys fall on their face and none of them can play, that's a different conversation. But I think we've seen the upside. When can the Steelers just, you know what? Here's the upside. These guys are all playing up to their potential. Let's see us have that kind of luck for once. It never seems to work out that way for us. Let's see it work out that way for us this time, people. Let's go to the poll. Which young lineman will make the most significant jump from year one to year two? Is it A, Troy Fautanu, B, Broderick Jones, C, Zach Frazier, D, Broderick Jones again, or E, Mason McCormick? And maybe we have Broderick Jones on there twice for the simple fact of moving from right tackle to left tackle. And we can't put Siamala on there because Siamalu is not young. So, which guy would you like to see make the biggest leap, or do you think will make the most significant leap? For me, I think it's Mason McCormick. I think it's McCormick, but we'll see. We'll see. So far in free agency, the Pittsburgh Steelers haven't really done much. We've seen some guys leave, but we haven't really seen the big splash free agent. Now, people are going to talk about, well, DK Metcalf, and I'm like, well, hold on. DK was a trade, and that happened before free agency started. So DK doesn't count. Not in my book. I don't think in anybody's book. That doesn't, literally, it doesn't count. But as far as big name defensive tackles, corner, a wide receiver, any of that, the Steelers didn't do anything. Like literally nothing. Now you would say, okay, Malik Harrison, a backup linebacker, okay. Darius Slay, bringing him in, okay. The problem with Slay, and not necessarily him or his play, but it doesn't address the position for the future. Like, okay, Slay plays 2025. Okay, I got it. Who plays 2026? Are we still saying that he's going to continue to play there? We gave him a 1-year deal. That's my thing. Is like, why won't we just attack the position in free agency? Well, there's a ton of theories going on out there, and I think it's important that we at least talk about it. The first is saving compensatory picks. Because if they get all these compensatory picks, and basically what that is draft picks that you receive when you have a free agent that leaves based on their playing time and the amount of money that they get. The highest one that we have is in the third round with Dan Moore. We got a third round compensatory pick for that. Okay. So that's valuable because it's a third round pick. So let's move forward. We got one for him. We got one for Najee Harris that left. Um, who else left in free agency? Dante Jackson. So we've got some compensatory picks. So far, I think we've got 5 so far. Now we had to give back one because we signed, somebody, Slay, or actually Slay doesn't count because Slay got cut. If you get cut, it doesn't matter. It's when somebody becomes an actual free agent. And that's the only time. Like if you cut somebody, that doesn't matter. If you trade for somebody, that doesn't matter. You only get compensatory picks if just somebody leaves your roster via free agency. Not getting cut, not getting traded. That doesn't count. So Hairston, 6th round, we got to give somebody back. Okay. So right now, it looks like the Steelers still have 4 as of the taping of this show. They still have 4, which, okay. And anywhere they've got 2 6th, a 5th, or a 4th and a 3rd. It's a pretty good haul, actually. Now, what are the Steelers going to do? And what's the reasoning, I guess, for the compensatory picks? Look, everybody's got their theory. I've got mine too. The Steelers are holding on to it because they're going to use them to trade up to try to get a big name quarterback next year, whoever that happens to be. I think that's what the Steelers are trying to do. And you have those compensatory picks and you give up the draft capital, but you already have a third round pick next year. This is just an extra one. So you can use it to your advantage. Hey, we give you a first, whatever, first, a third, a fourth, a fifth, whatever it takes to move up. And that's what the Steelers may be trying to do. I think that is what they're trying to do. They want to save them so they can use those in 2026 because that's when the compensatory picks come into play. They're not for this draft this season. They're for next year. And since they are, that's my theory. And I'm sticking to it. I'm absolutely sticking to it. Trying to get up, move up. And it's actually a smart play. It just doesn't help us for 2025. Now, another thought is maybe the Steelers just didn't really like the free agents out there with the amount of money that they were going to have to spend. Maybe they thought, it's a lot of money for that. It's too much money for this. My thinking is that's not intelligent. Everybody knows that you overpay in free agency. Okay? That's not a secret. Everybody overpays. That's just what you do. The Steelers didn't do any of that. They didn't pay anybody. I mean, again, they gave DK the money, but that was via trade. Like, we didn't get a corner. We didn't get a D tackle. We didn't get a wide receiver. We didn't do these things. And I know Slay technically is a corner, but again, that's not addressing the position long term. We didn't sign DJ Reed, Tre'Davious Ward, Byron Murphy. We didn't do those things. So my question is, why? And again, maybe the Steelers just looked at it and said, for the amount of money that we're going to have to pay a Milton Williams or whoever it might be, we don't want to do that because we don't think that significantly upgrades our roster. And if that's the case and that's their thinking, I agree with it. Now, I actually don't agree that those guys wouldn't significantly upgrade our roster because I think they would have. But if that's their way of thinking, then you can't necessarily disagree because you don't want to pay big money for guys that you don't think can significantly help your team. And that's maybe where the difference is. They looked at it and like, yeah, they're not going to significantly help us. Why give out all this money if it's not going to help? I disagree with that, but I don't disagree with the philosophy because they would be right. You don't pay that kind of money for people that you don't think can really, really make a difference on your roster. And maybe that's their way of thinking, you know, and just refusing to overspend, which again, I agree with. But lastly, is it just the same old Steelers? Just, we're not going to do that. Free agency is here, but we're really not going to participate in it. Yeah, and we're going to look at low end level free agents, sign our guys. We're going to do that and just stick with that. Look, there may be some people that get mad about this. There may be some people that I lose subscribers because of this, but I wholeheartedly believe this. The Steeler way of the 70s and the 80s is no longer relevant in today's NFL, people. You cannot run this organization or pretty much any organization the same way that you ran it 50 or 40 or 30 or 20 or 10 years ago. You cannot do that. But the Steelers, it seems like they do. We don't dive into free agency like we should. We haven't dabbled into free agency like we should. And to me, I think it's a mistake. But I think that might be another way of thinking. We're just, hey, this is the way we've always done it. We're not going to deviate from it. And to me, that's a crime. Because why did you clear the cap space? Like, what's the point in having all this cap space if you're not going to use it? Well, I mean, what difference does it make? And again, you've got to spend 90% of it. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. You got to spend 90% of the money. So what are you going to do? And if you don't spend it, you have to give the difference to the players. So in essence, you're spending it anyway. So what are we doing here? And don't tell me it's a bunch of rookie. Well, we're going to just draft a bunch of people. You can't just build your team through the draft and win. It doesn't work like that in the National Football League. I'm sorry. It just doesn't work that way. You can't just have, we're doing nothing but draft picks. That's it. We're going to hit on every single one of them, and we're just going to win and ride it out from there. That's not real reality. It's just not. So, unfortunately, that's where we're at, people. I think that is the way that the Steelers are thinking. I think it's just the same old, unfortunately, which sucks. Let's go to the poll question. What do you think about the Steelers' decision to avoid big name free agent signings this offseason? A, it's a smart move for long-term success. B, they should have gone with some big names to compete now. Or C, I'm indifferent. Let's see how the draft goes. I mean, I definitely want to see how the draft goes. But man, not investing in really any big name guys, I just think is a mistake. I do. I think it's a mistake. Those guys are good football players for a reason. And when the Steelers don't go after them, it's like other teams are. You think other teams are just in the business of, yeah, we're just going to pay this guy because we think he's going to suck. They're not. They don't. Well, look, people, I get it. Aaron Rodgers is not everybody's cup of tea. For the most part, Aaron Rodgers is not the majority of Steeler fans' cup of tea. And I admit, he's not my cup of tea either. But with what we currently have and what our roster looks like, I don't know that he's not the best option. That doesn't necessarily make me happy. That doesn't make me overjoyed. But if we just want to win, and that's literally the only thing that we care about with the Pittsburgh Steelers anyway, then if he's the best option, let's go for it. Take money out of it. Who cares about the money? It's not our money. We're not spending our own money. You know, the money is what it is. I just look at it from a standpoint of, can he get the job done? And if he can get the job done, that's all that really matters. And we might dislike Aaron Rodgers for whatever reason, but I think he might actually be our best option, people. Unfortunate. And we got ourselves into this position, but I actually believe he's the best option for what the Steelers have going on right now. So appreciate y'all, guys. Hey, I thank you guys for bearing with me all week. I'm getting better. You can still hear it in my voice a little bit, but I am starting to feel a lot better. So I appreciate you guys bearing with me. Again, if you haven't already, make sure you like, follow, subscribe, continue to get in the comments section, and always hit the notification bell so you know when Steelers Almighty content comes out. Remember, if you want to help support the channel and be a member, 5 separate levels to become a member of Steelers Almighty. Until next time, aloha.